Hi everyone, it's Hanley in for DecoArt, and I'm back to work on our landscape. So today we're going to add some fields, a little barn, and some trees to our painting. We're also going to try to achieve a sense of depth using 3 different planes called the foreground, middle ground, and background. So I've loosely drawn up what I intend to paint on some clear plastic sheets, just so it's a little easier for me to show you what I mean. So here we have the background. Some rolling hills, some tiny little trees. The background is the farthest away. The objects in the background are much smaller in size, so they're closer to the horizon line, and they have less detail and usually more muted colors. So on this sheet, I have loosely drawn out our middle ground, which will have a little bit more detail as things are closer to us and a little bit larger. So we've got our little barn here. And lastly, we have our foreground. Now, this is the area in the painting that is closest to the viewer. It has the largest objects, for instance our tree, and the foreground has the brightest colors and the most detail and often overlaps the other ones. All right, let's get started with the hills in the background. Again, these ones are the farthest back, and the shrubs and trees are going to be the smallest, and just to create some distance. So I'm going to use a muted green and even add a little tinge of blue. So sometimes hills off in the background, they actually have a little bit of a blue tinge, and it's called atmospheric perspective. So basically all the particles in the air, like dust and so on, reflect the color of the sky, and it's seen in the hills. So I'm just going to use my round brush, and I'm going to paint in some kind of muted colors. All right, so I've got a few hills in the background, and I'm just going to add a few little shrubs and trees. Okay, so then they're going to be small, just so that they look like they're really far off in the distance. And I'm just going to use my little round brush to kind of really quickly just kind of base those in. And I'm just kind of using little rounded strokes. A couple of dark greens. Okay, and they're so far away we're not going to see any real details or anything like that. All right, so we've got in our background. I just basically did a few little hills. This could be water, but it's actually a flax field that's blooming. We've got some wheat fields and then some trees and shrubs. And they're all very small. I didn't pay attention to a lot of detail just because it's nice and far away. So it's gonna create a lot of depth. Now, we're going to work on the middle ground next, and this is where our barn sits. And we've got, again, I'm going to put in a couple more wheat fields. It has a little bit more detail, but not too much. And then, of course, our foreground is going to have the biggest objects and the brightest colors. So I'm just going to paint in our little barn here. Again, barns are great because they can be quite old and falling apart, so they don't have to be perfect. So I'm just using a little bit of brown and some black to paint in that roof. And then, of course, my barn is going to be a nice little red barn. So I'm going to add some red coloring to the front and the sides, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to add some trees behind the barn here. Okay, so I've got in my barn, I'm going to add in those nice big wheat fields in front.